Good morning, Rocky Mountain rock stars. My name is John Conan, and I've been asked by your fantastic professor, Andrew Meyer, to talk about classroom management and connect to a children's book that I've written titled Benjamin's Visit to Principal Reed's Office Again. A little about me. Just so you know, I've been in several different classrooms and can speak to behavior in my 21 years in education. It all started way back when I was a kindergartner. I was the kid that didn't want to take a nap. In fact, back in the 1980s, all kindergartners had to take naps. Having attention deficit disorder that my mom didn't want to medicate, my parents tried a multiple of discipline strategies and even restricted my diet. I found myself in the principal's office every year in school. In fact, I could tell you about a behavior situation in almost every classroom because I still can remember every teacher's face and them saying to me, "Go to the office." In fact, I have even been suspended in middle school and high school a couple times, but we're not going to get into that. So let's skip ahead. 41 years from kindergarten. I have taught grades 2nd, 5th, 6th. I've been an instructional coach. In addition, I have coached basketball, football, and track at the junior high level. I have been a K-12 principal in a small rural community called Power Public Schools, just north of Great Falls. And for the last 9 years, I've been a principal at a large elementary of over 430 students in Great Falls Public Schools. This past March, I signed a contract to be the superintendent of Corvallis School District in western Montana. In addition, I've been fortunate enough to win several awards and publish a book and some guides. 2010 Presidential Award for Elementary Math and Science, got invited to Washington, D.C., got to meet Barack Obama. 2011, we won the National Blue Ribbon School Award. I was invited and went to Washington, D.C. that year as well. In 2016, published a bully prevention guide. 2017, published a guide for teaching excellence. 2018, I won the National Distinguished Principal Award, was invited to Washington, D.C. for that as well. And then just recently in 2019, I published a children's book, which we'll be reading today. And just last March, I won the Breakfast Hero Award, National Award from No Kid Hungry program. So it's been kind of an amazing ride so far, my 21 years of education, but I want you to think about that. Student with ADD in the principal's office every single year, and now have the ability to hopefully run my own school starting in July. So for those of you who get in trouble like me, there's hope. Many teachers have told me that my students will definitely be paying it forward with their behaviors towards me. Okay, so the goal of this webinar is to dig deeper into classroom management. I formatted this webinar into 4 sections. 1, an introduction to me, which you already heard. 2, what does classroom management mean to me? 3, we're gonna read a book. I'm gonna have a challenge for you during that book. And 4, we're gonna get into a discussion on those strategies that we're gonna discuss that are in the story. So a little bit about classroom management. So many people think of classroom management as purely discipline of students. Are we able to control our students in the classroom or not? So to me, classroom management, this isn't the number one thing I hire on. In fact, I've hired over 100 some people in my career. And yes, I love a teacher that knows classroom management, knows a little bit about themselves. But more importantly, I look for teachers who know what really drives classroom management. And to me, what drives classroom management are relationships and classroom culture. You'll hear many teachers say that they think relationships are the key to success as a teacher. I agree, this is true. But they can't put it into words and they don't have the actions to back it up. So what does that teacher actually do to create relationships with students? And what does that teacher actually do to create positive classroom culture? I will hire you if you can speak to those 2 things with concrete examples. I can train you on classroom management and give you strategies, but I have a harder time trying to teach a person how to connect with kids, how to connect with adults, how to connect with their colleagues. If I can sense that you have some type of rigidity or an inability to communicate and create strong relationships, I'm probably not going to hire you. I want teachers who have a growth mindset, who are confident in themselves, and they like kids, and they can speak to that in their interview. So, okay, here are my top 5 facets of classroom management. 1, relationship building. 2, classroom culture creator. 3, engaging instructor. 4, basic need provider. And number 5, a problem solver. So let's dig a little bit deeper. Relationship builder. That is the person that has the ability to create relationships with students, parents, colleagues, and the community. 2, I need you to be a classroom culture creator. That you have the ability to create a classroom culture where students are able to take risks, are empowered to think and be responsible, and can contribute to the overall health of the classroom. 3, engaging instructor. Yeah, the ability to use strong content with active participation, learning structures, and then of course, passion to engage those students in learning. Number 4, I need you to be a basic need provider. I need you to be able to have the ability to have strong relationships with students in order to make sure they're getting their basic needs met, like food, clothing, shelter, social and emotional health. And lastly, I need you to be a problem solver. That is the ability to diagnose a problem, dig deeper to the root of the cause of the problem, and implement tools, strategies, ideas, or have the ability to find more solutions. Now, I could go in more depth about why each of these are pertinent to classroom management. But what I want you to do first is prioritize this list. What is the most important component to classroom management from these 5? Why would you put them in that order? So you may push pause and go back, listen to those first 5, and prioritize them. What's the greatest piece to classroom management that you think out of those 5, and what's the least? You may pause and do that now. Welcome back. If I were to prioritize my list from greatest component to weakest component, here would be my list and rationale for each. Number 1, I would still put relationship building. Everything evolves around that relationship between the teacher and the student, and the students among themselves. This is where it all starts. Then I would go to number 4, basic need provider. Students can't learn if they don't have their basic needs met first. So just think about this. Think about a student who's trying to learn that hasn't had food all day, or has had an extensive trauma happen to them just recently. How are they going to be able to learn? Number 5 is a problem solver. And I put that right up there on top in the top 3. As a teacher, you're gonna need to make 1,000 decisions daily. You can't start making decisions until you have built a relationship with the student and have tried to meet their basic needs. In addition, your toolbox of strategies to use with students must continue to grow. The larger your proverbial toolbox, the better you can support students with learning. Number 2 would be my next one, classroom culture creator. As a teacher, you need to be creating, sustaining, and continuing an atmosphere of learning that is safe and students feel like they can take a risk that is vital to a classroom culture. In addition, I want a teacher that is able to empower students to be part of the classroom culture so they can help nurture this learning environment, and it's not all coming down from the principal or all coming down from the teacher. It takes every single person in the school to be a classroom culture builder. And lastly, it comes back to instruction. Engaging instructor. Do you have the skills to read your class, to use active participation techniques, to implement different learning structures that meet the needs of all students, and then doing all this with passion and gusto for your grade level content? Okay, section 4, let's get to the book challenge. Okay, let's move to a fun activity. Now that you know about what I think of classroom management, let's try to find as many classroom management techniques or strategies and ideas as you can while I read a book called Benjamin's Visit to Principal Reed's Office Again, written by me, illustrated by Ray Kelly, who's a good friend of mine who lives in Great Falls also. And what I want you to do is jot down, and you may have to pause the video while you do this, jot down all of the different strategies, tips, or ideas that you can hear in the story. And then I want you to number them. I want you to find out how many did you find in that story. Okay, are you ready? So we are going to switch over to the story. Hopefully right now you are taking out your pen or pencil and you're ready to go. Here we go. Benjamin found himself going down to Principal Reed's office again. This was not the first time. Benjamin knew exactly what Principal Reed's was going to ask. Benjamin, Tell me why you're here. Let's process. Benjamin liked Principal Reeds, but he hated to be in the office to process. When Principal Reeds used the word process, he knew that usually meant a long time talking about what happened, what he could have done differently, and how he was going to fix it. Benjamin had been through the process several times. The process seemed to work for a little while. Then something else would happen, requiring another visit to Principal Reed's office. Everyone at Booking Elementary had to process with Mr. Reeds when they came down to the office. Benjamin's anger began to increase and his feeling of nervousness set in as he slowly walked down to the office. His teacher, Mrs. Hardback, made him carry a big binder down to the secretary. Benjamin did not know why he had to carry the binder down to the office, but he overheard his teacher talking with Mrs. Paperwick, the secretary, about the heavy work. Benjamin felt proud that he was doing work for his teacher, and it was truly heavy. He thought maybe they could not carry that binder themselves, and he was doing them a big favor. As Benjamin entered Principal Reed's office, he noticed Principal Reed's doing jumping jacks. Well, this was weird, thought Benjamin. He had seen him do strange stuff before. Well, this was weird, with a capital W. Benjamin, join me in doing jumping jacks. I bet you can keep up with me. Benjamin said hesitantly, I'm not very good at jumping jacks, Mr. Reeds. Principal Reeds continued to invite him. Come on, dude. I bet you can do them as fast as me. Benjamin started. 1, 2, 3, 4. This seemed to go on forever. Principal Reeds finally said, the record in my office is 91. Should we go for it? Okay, let's go for it, said Benjamin. 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100. Let's take a break, said Principal Reeds. Yes, I'm exhausted. Benjamin's anger seemed to be gone, but his nervousness had dissipated. Benjamin thought that maybe this was a trick. Why are you doing jumping jacks, Mr. Reeds? I don't know, but I was getting upset, and I needed to do something to calm myself down, and I thought, why not jumping jacks, explained Principal Reeds. Principal Reeds knew that in order to get Benjamin to process, he had to give him some glass first. I thought it might be a trick so I can process with you sooner and not be so mad, said Benjamin. Actually, I have time, Ben. Can I call you Ben? Exclaimed Mr. Reeds. Yes, you can call me Ben. What do you mean you have time? Well, I know you're down here for a reason, but when you're ready to process, we will then have our learning conversation, said Principal Reeds. Oh, I'm not ready yet, Mr. Reeds, said Benjamin. As soon as Mr. Reeds said that, he turned around and started working on his computer. He then pulled out a green list with students' names on it. Benjamin wondered if all those students on the green list were in trouble. Mr. Reeds picked up the phone, dialed the phone number. Benjamin hoped it was not his parents' number. While it was ringing, Benjamin asked, "Who are you calling?" Before anyone could answer the call, Mr. Reeds said, "Hello, is this Mr. Skimmer? This is Mr. Reeds from Booking Elementary. How are you doing today?" "I'm calling to give you a positive about Billy." Yes, I get to call him positives too. Mrs. McChapter, your son's teacher, said he's been a model student. He gets along with everyone in the classroom and he's made great growth on his last reading test, from a 74% to a 90%. Yes, I'll pass on the praise back to Miss McChapter too. Have a great afternoon. Mr. Reeds, I didn't know you called parents to give them positive praise, said Benjamin. Yes, it gets really boring when all I do is make those hard phone calls on bad behavior. I like to mix it up with some positives too. Is this one of your tricks, Mr. Reeds? What do you mean, Ben? While I'm sitting here waiting to process, you're calling other parents about their kid being good, proclaimed Ben. Actually, Ben, I have a lot of work to do, and I make phone calls all day long. If I did not use my time wisely, I might have to stay after school quite late to finish. I don't want to stay long tonight. I want to get home and play with my new dog. I'm ready to start. Mr. Reed started the conversation, but seemed to start from the end instead of the beginning. Ben, how are you going to fix your problem? Mr. Reeds knew that this was a strategy sometimes works to get students to focus on how to repair or fix the problem. I'm going to fix it by talking with my teacher. I'm going to tell her I'm sorry for not listening and making noises so other students could not learn. I should probably apologize to my class too, said Benjamin. That's a great start, Ben. I notice this is not your first time visiting with me and of you not doing your job and disrupting the learning of other students. In order for you to plan to be, for your plan to be successful, we have to change the behavior. We need something to decrease how often this happens and how long this occurs, or how often you get upset or how upset you get. Therefore, we need to choose one or all of those to change. How is your solution going to be different? Mr. Reeds, I think I need to work on frequency. I can decrease the number of times I disrupt the class. I need to be on task more, said Benjamin. Great plan, Ben. Let's get it into writing. Make sure we update your parents on the plan you created and get you back to class, said Mr. Reeds. Take 5 minutes and write down 5 strategies you're going to use in the classroom. You may write them on this paper. It will be a behavior contract you've created yourself. You will have my support and you will have your parents sign it and bring it back tomorrow. While you're working, I'm going to keep working while you write down your 5 strategies. Let me know when you're done so we can finalize your plan. If you need support, just ask me. Okay, I'll start. I will ask you if I need support. Mr. Reeds continued making 3 more positive phone calls to parents while Ben continued to work on his behavior contract. Mr. Reeds, I'm done. Can we go over it now? Yes. Let me finish this last phone call and then we can go over it. Ben felt better about going to Mr. Reed's office and knew his conversation with his parents was going to be difficult. His parents were going to be upset. Okay, Ben, let's go through your plan. First, tell me why you're here in my office, then read your plan to me. Okay, I'm here today because I got in trouble for not doing my job in the classroom. I disrupted the rest of the class's learning for making noises. I stole their learning. Here are the 5 strategies I'm going to use next time. I will listen to directions the first time. I will ask my teacher for a break if I need to move. I will be respectful to my class so I don't steal their learning time. 4, I will use my fidget so it does not distract other students when I feel nervous or need to talk. 5, I will track my behavior, blurt outs on a sticky note so I can decrease the frequency. Mr. Reeds was proud. I think you have a great plan. You have 5 fantastic strategies that you can use to support yourself. When you sign the bottom of your behavior contract, that tells me, your parents, as well as your teachers, that you are going to do your job in the classroom. It also tells everyone that you're responsible for using those 5 strategies every day. If this continues, we may have to move to the next level of support. That could include more help from home or from me in your classroom. We'll be doing a check-in, check-out each day. I don't think we'll have to go to that next level, but I wanted you to know what that might look like. We'll be meeting once a week to discuss your progress on your plan and your data from your self-tracking tool. Thanks, Mr. Reeds. I cannot wait to show you my progress. As Benjamin walked down to his classroom, all he could think about was doing jumping jacks with Mr. Reeds and hoping to get a positive call from Mr. Reeds someday. Hello? Is this Benjamin's mom? This is Mr. Reeds from Booking Elementary. I'm calling you with some positive news today. Benjamin came up with a plan that uses 5 strategies that will help him in the classroom. He created this plan on his own. Though he spent time with me today processing, I cannot wait to see his plan in action tomorrow. Can you make sure to praise him for his ownership in his behaviors today, as well as creating a behavior plan that will fix it? Have a great day. So that's the story of Benjamin's visit to Principal Reed's office. Your job right now is to make sure you have everything listed on your paper. What are all the different behavior, strategies, tips, or ideas that Principal Reed's used in the story? Then number them. How many did you find? You may pause and go back through the story if you would like to. We're going to go on. There are probably more than 16, but I got 16 in there, 17 tips. I took one out. This is the actual one of the first copies of the story, but I took one out and then we're down to 16 now. But here are the 17 tips, tricks, and strategies. And again, this is for principals, teachers, or parents. So number one, heavy work. Did you notice that Benjamin had to carry a binder down? Sometimes kids just need to be able to have that physical sensory piece of carrying something heavy or doing some work. So we call that heavy work. Number two, giving glass. Giving glass is a metaphor for being able to change a topic of conversation. A lot of times kids get stuck in their repetitive and negative thought process. And in order to get the student out of that, we have to maybe come up with talking about something different. It may sound really weird. Kid may be going off about how mad they are, and you might ask them what their favorite movie is, or what color do they feel like right now. So those type of things help break up the thought process, and we call that giving glass. Three, exercise before processing. Students who need to do a physical activity before they can talk coherently or in a calm fashion. So a lot of times we have kids do something physical before they can actually talk through their behavior and take ownership of what they did. Four, wait time. So sometimes when I get a student into my office right away, and you'll deal with students in the classroom who are so upset at the time that you're unable to talk to them right away. They need some time. And you got to give them that. And it means actually stepping away, giving them some time and space. So we call that wait time. Next one is processing. Okay? That's the ability to talk through an incident from the trigger of how it happened in the behavior to the reaction, and then to the adult and how they can connect strategies to avoid that trigger and lessen the undesired behavior and connect a strategy to solve the situation or solution at the end. So that's all part of what we call processing. Next one is fix it. This language comes from being able to fix the relationship first. In our school, we try to make sure that relationships are number one. So when you upset a teacher and get kicked out of class, one of the first things that you're going to do is, one, own your behavior, but two, you're going to go back and fix that relationship between you and the teacher. This is also called social justice. So it's the language used when students, when they fix a problem. It usually involves fixing the relationship with another student or adult, and then maintaining and retaining those relationships. That's the focus in finding a solution to the problem. Next is modeling language. We do a lot of modeling language where students maybe not have the words to be able to solve the problem or to process through, and we model that language for them and get them to be able to repeat that, especially before we go back and fix it. So they can say, Mrs. Hardback, I'm sorry for blurting out in class. I'll make sure that I work on that next time. So a lot of times kids don't have that language, and we have to actually give that language, practice it, model it, and then go with them probably the first couple of times to make sure that they, one, can follow through, but two, that they remember the words that they have to use. And if they're not ready to do it, if they're too upset, then we go back and try again. We go back and do some more processing, and then we model some more language, and then we go back and fix it. It's just kind of this cycle that we continue to keep doing. That's how we keep relationships first. Next one, positive phone calls. A lot of times principals only give the negative phone calls home. That's the majority of all the ones that I ever got was from the principal or the teacher talking about how he either got kicked out of class or got in trouble. And so doing the opposite of that would be having positive phone calls home. I believe that every student has an emotional bank account, and the more that we can put deposits in that emotional bank account, then later on we can withdraw from that account because we've already built it up. And what I mean by withdraw is we might have to fix something, and parents might already be on your side if you've already made some positive phone calls home. Ownership. We always try to get kids to own their behavior, and we work through that, and that's part of the processing piece. Once they own that, then we make the call home. A lot of times when I was a young principal or a young teacher, I would call home first before they ever owned it. And it was very difficult for them to be able to get past that, because a lot of times the first thing the parents say is, oh, Johnny wouldn't do that. That's not him. But if you can say, actually, we already processed through it. He already owned his actions, and here's what we're going to do to fix it. And that way we already come with a solution to the problem when we're talking to a parent, and the fact that they already owned it. Next, we always start with the end in mind. So a solution-based conversation. That means we're always looking at how we can solve the problem. The faster that we can go to solution, the more healthy we are. And so we always start with the end in mind in a lot of conversations that we do with students. So if they're running down the hallway, what would be the solution? You may either walk with me or you may walk behind me. That might be a solution for them. Or they may have to do it all over again. They're not in trouble, but they do have to do it over again if they need to do it correctly. And so we always try to start with the end in mind, and that can be going for several different behaviors. Next one, student-centered behavior contract. Get the student to help me to be able to make a contract, and simply could be listing a couple different expectations or rules that they're going to follow. Then they're going to sign it. Teacher's going to sign it. I'm going to sign it, and then the parent's going to sign it. And we all have a contract that they own, and we go forward with it. And we talk about what's going to happen if it happens again. Next one, practicing hard conversations. A lot of times students that I have call home to their parents have a hard time having those hard conversations. So we practice and model a lot of language, but we also are helping them be able to talk to their parents about stuff that happens. Once they've owned it, they're able to have that conversation with their parents and break the news to them. It helps decrease the frequency, the intensity, and the duration of all the problems. Next one, scheduled breaks. We do this a lot with students. This would have been great for me. I wish my teachers maybe would have done this a little bit more. We had scheduled breaks. So for example, we know that Johnny gets in trouble at 9:40. What do? At 9:35, we set up a scheduled break. And that scheduled break could look like him walking a binder down to the office. It could look like him going on a wild goose chase where he goes from classroom to classroom, getting positives from classroom teachers, and then comes back to class. There are a multitude of ways that we can do scheduled breaks. And so we have to learn a little bit more about the student and when the behavior is occurring to be able to start doing scheduled breaks. Next one is a fidget tool. You saw the fidget spinners come out a couple years ago. Those were the craze, and then silly putty and stuff like that. A lot of times kids brought those and they were toys. Well, the big difference between a fidget toy and a fidget tool is the one key word, toy or tool. Okay, a tool is something that we use to be able to help us manage and self-regulate our emotions and behavior. A fidget toy is meant to have fun with and not caring about what anyone else is asking us to do. So again, know the difference between a fidget toy and a fidget tool. And we have to make sure that we match that tool up with a student. And that can be difficult, trying to find something that's not very noisy or that can't be chucked or hurt by being thrown at someone else. We got to be able to find what is best for them. A lot of times we put some sandpaper underneath the student's desk for them to be able to feel that sensory piece, and that was kind of like their fidget tool that they use. So you have to be creative with everything that you do with that. Sometimes one works one week and it doesn't work the next week, and so you're going to have to try and experiment over time. But you have to teach the student that it's a tool, not a toy, and what the expectations look like if they're using it. Next. Student self-tracking tool. As early as possible, we're trying to get students to be able to monitor and regulate their own behavior. I'm talking as early as kindergarten. They might have to do a smiley face for how well they did from the start of school until recess time, and then continuing on. As the kids get older, I start having them tally information. So they're the ones tallying, if they're having blurt outs. No one else needs to know what this little tally sheet is for. And then we can set goals with that tally sheet. For example, if there's 7 or 8 blurt outs between 10:10 and 10:30, and we know that's one of our times of the day that there's a lot of frequency or duration, a lot of frequency during that time period, then we can set goals. Trying to get the student to, 1, own the behavior, and 2, start to self-track that. And so we're trying to come up with several different types of self-tracking tools. And number 16, tiered level of supports. So in our school, we have tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. Tier 1 is every student in our school that they, majority, we'd say over 80% of our students meet that level of support. That's just normal level of support for a teacher or principal to be able to support a student. Level 2, we have a little bit more targeted interventions towards students and towards specific behaviors. This might be behavior that's recently escalated. There might be some trauma or anxiety that has happened in the student's life, and we need to be able to put some interventions in place. And then tier 3, those are students who have possibly comprehensive behavior plans. They've done a functional behavior analysis. We've set up possibly a customized learning plan or some type of response to intervention plan for that student. And they're probably, possibly if we can't get the data to decrease, we're possibly looking at a referral to special ed for an individualized education plan. We also might be looking at something that's more trauma-based. We might be getting some more counselors or therapists to be able to support the student. We use extensively the community support and comprehensive program for called CSCT in a lot of our schools. And then lastly, we have check-in, check-out strategy. This is huge. We use check-in and check-out strategy for several different things. If the student's having difficulty outside of recess, they come check in with the teacher. They let the teacher know exactly what it's going to look like outside. They go outside and do it and practice it, and then they come back in and they have to report. And so obviously all the adults have to be on the same page with this and communicating. We're getting kids to own their behavior. We're also getting kids to be able to pull out a strategy themselves if they get frustrated or mad or having a difficult time outside, and then being able to praise them and celebrate them. And the biggest things with check-in, check-out, one is consistency, but two is to be able to celebrate the smallest things, because we want them to be able to, if we're checking, check out 4 different times a day, we want to have that die out where we're down to maybe once a day where they check in, check out, and eventually maybe once a week, and then be done completely. So those are the 17 strategies that I have in there. Now there's probably more in there that you were able to find. And what I want you to do is to be able to either email me or let me know what those other strategies are that we missed. And so I tried to put as many into it as possible in the book. And it's good for both parents and teachers to be able to use those. And definitely stress the social emotional learning side of being a different principal. I know my principal sat in his office, and back then in the 1980s, we still got paddled. And yes, I was paddled as an elementary student. And so obviously we're not going to do that now. I love the strategies that we use now to be able to get kids to own it, to be able to empower them, to be able to regulate their behavior, and to be able to celebrate them at the end of the day. So this story that I read to you about Benjamin is actually based on a couple kids in my school currently, but more importantly, it's also based on me. And this is how I would like to be treated as a student if I had a principal in my school. I'd like my principal to have a relationship with me. I'd like my teacher to be able to have a relationship with me and to be able to try to solve this as a team. So I hope you like this. Hopefully you did well on your book challenge and finding those tips and strategies in the book. I'd love to hear from you. My email address is principalreads@gmail.com. Have a great day.